Hello, everybody, and welcome into my latest live broadcast. Today is Monday, the 6th of May, 2019. Welcome in, everybody. Cheers. First Coke of the day. Here we go. So hopefully the audio is in sync with the video. I guess I'll find out here in a few minutes. The delay between when I talk and when you hear me is about 90 seconds to 2 minutes. So hopefully we'll have a response here pretty quick with regards to audio and video quality, so then we can proceed with today's build. In the meantime, a shout out to, let's see, Tony Wallow. Tony's contributed $1.99 and also made another generous contribution through PayPal. So thank you to Tony for continued support of the channel. I really appreciate that very much. It's people like Tony that make it possible for me to make more videos more often. And others like Tony. And I'll say hello to my friends here in blue, Tim D, Scotty, Ben DeCour. Ben also recently gave a very generous contribution the other day, so thank you guys so much. And Catherine Anna Hauserman, who puts parts lists together for people looking to do their first build and need some advice. Catherine does that completely for free. You can contact her. Her name is Blue. She's in the chat today. Glenn H, let's say hello to Jens Carlson, Jesse Kirk, Michael Collis, Jesse, another big supporter of the channel. Thank you, Jesse. Michael Collis, Speedy C, Paul Newman, Geo Johnson, Nick Poverman, Alhaj Depej, Sharon Idle, Joseph Neal, Spamopolis, 55 Staying Dude, John Finor, Renee Cusson, Russ Franzen, Bill Thomas, Mark Baggett, Artec, Robert Cronin. Did I say Patrick Rousseau? And let's see, we've got Rich Robbins joining us, Gainsey95, Paul Wright, Ben Laird, Donnie Seeger, Vern Mahoney, Nighthawk, Robert Jones, Stephen Bernstein's joining us, as well as RC Pilot and Jason Fortin, Jack Keaton. I think I got all my friends there in blue. And how do they become blue? They become blue by showing that they are kind to other people in the chat room. They are supportive to other people in the chat room. They don't contradict me and want to argue with me. And they're just a leading example of the community that we are creating very uniquely on the internet, where the internet is typically used to attack one another. This is a little different, where we're helping one another out and supporting one another. Instead of attacking, insulting, or disparaging, which you can get any place else on the internet except here. So if you lead by example, I'll be happy to turn you blue as well. Also, people that are frequent contributors to the channel, I'll often turn them blue because it's another great way of showing support to make these videos possible, because that's the foundation upon which the community is built. So thanks to everybody for their contributions. Alan Maybrier's contributed $2. Thank you to Alan. And then also Colin Hunt has contributed, whoops, I hit a wrong button. Colin Hunt has contributed £2. Thank you, Colin. We'll make you a moderator there. And Bill Thomas has contributed $10. He says, thanks, Carey, for all you do for us. John Peck just contributed £2. Thank you, John. Appreciate that very much. He says, the next Coke is on me. Right on. I appreciate that. Well, I'm glad to hear that sorry, I got distracted by the chat room again. I think I'm going to start over. Oh, and more contributions coming in. Donnie Seeger, $2. He says, highlight of my day, you're awesome. Thank you, Donnie. I appreciate that. Yeah, so anyway, doing another build today. This one's going to be very similar to the previous build. And in fact, another build soon coming up later this week will be again similar in the sense that I have found this magical combination of parts that hits that $1,000 price point for a high-end business machine. And that involves the parts I've got here with a few modifications to meet each individual customer's needs. For example, things that'll change will be if a customer wants to turn this $1,000 rocket ship into a gaming computer, then whatever their budget is for a graphics card, we just add that right in. If the customer wants a different amount of RAM or a different amount of storage. But beyond that, everything else stays the same. It's the Corsair 200R case, which you know I love. There's the Z370XP SLI motherboard, which is the foundation upon which the system's built around. It's a good, solid, no-frills motherboard, a very attractive price point. The Mugen 5 cooler, nothing beats this at this price point. In fact, nothing beats this at any price point. As for silence and cooling and ease of installation, there's no comparison for any cooler, in my opinion and in my experience. What CPU is it? Well, I don't want to use the latest and greatest CPUs. They're expensive and sometimes can be hard to get a hold of. And like the 9 series require a special, Z390 chipset, and there's not as much selection available to choose from with motherboards. And so maybe next year you'll see more of that. Give it some time to mature. In the meantime, in my opinion, the i7-8700K is the chip to go with right now. And we're using a 970 Evo M.2 NVMe 1 terabyte solid state drive. And we're combining that with 16 gigs. If you recall, last build was 32 gigs of essentially the same memory. This is Corsair Vengeance, 2 sticks that are 8 gigs each, totaling 16, running at 2666 megahertz. And then finally, we're using the EVGA 650 GQ. I will probably change out to a different power supply on the next build, only because I don't like the silver screws that come with this one. It's a silly reason, but I just don't like the silver screws. So I will find another EVGA power supply that is equivalent to that will hopefully meet my needs better. And then if a customer wants it, we have the optical drive here. The optical drives, there's a lot of snobbish elitist people that are like, who uses an optical drive today? What do you care? It's really annoying when people have no consideration for the needs of others and think only of themselves. And there's lots of people like that on the internet when they say things like, nobody cares. You're speaking for everyone? They appointed you to speak on their behalf? Were you Al Sharpton? That's a joke because obviously it appears that Al Sharpton speaks for a group of people who never asked him to speak for them. But regardless of that, just be aware of those people and try not to entertain them. Best to just ignore them. They're in their own little downward spiral. Best not to get involved, or you'll get caught in the whirlpool and they'll drag you right down with them. But in the meantime, optical drive. If you want to add an optical drive externally, you can always buy a USB-based optical drive if you just use it on occasion. And of course, if you don't need one, then we don't put one in. But it's a $20 option, and I think it's good to have it and not need it than the other way around. But these builds are customized for each individual customer after a lengthy consultation to understand the way the customer is going to use the computer, what's important to the customer with regards to performance, reliability, case design, case windows, RGB lighting, price point, how many apps they open at the same time, what kind of apps they are, how critical is the job of the computer? Is this something that's just for fun, or is this something that's going to operate a business and the life of the business is going to depend on it? There's tons and tons of questions that I do. And in fact, I do have a live consultation in a previous video that goes on about that series of questions where the customer allowed me to film on a speakerphone that consultation, so you guys get an idea that it's not just somebody going, hey, I got $1,000, what should I build? That's not a question I answer that easily. I've got to know so much more about you. And based on that, I've really been finding that this combination of parts is a great foundation to pretty much build for anybody, whether you want to build a gaming machine or a workhorse for business or a little of both. It's a good all-rounder, and it hits that perfect price point, which is you're not spending $3,000, but you're also not spending $500, because in either case, you're probably going to regret it. I know typically I would regret it if I'm the builder, because that $500 computer is probably going to kill me on support calls, and that $3,000 computer is probably going to kill me on support calls and affect my reputation. So I'm always trying to find that comfortable middle, and I think that middle exists between a minimum of about $900 and upwards to around $1,800, maybe $2,000, depending on how much storage you're putting in there. And once you start exceeding $2,000, things get complicated, and when things get complicated, it starts affecting performance, reliability, a finickiness of the machine and its behaviors. And so if you like something, you want to just plug it in and use it without constantly having to maintain it, baby it, take care of it. I have found through my experience, these are a good example of parts that will get you there. These aren't the only parts that will get you there, but they will get you there. And I'm so confident with it. I'm building as many of these as possible because when a customer is happy, that's good business for me. When I don't deal with support calls, that's good business for me too. And these have proven really well, these selection of parts. There's certainly cheaper RAM you can buy than Corsair Vengeance. But I will tell you that if you have a problem with the RAM, there's nobody better to deal with RAM RMAs than Corsair. And they have just really been outstanding anytime I need anything under warranty taken care of. Their process is simple, they're responsive, and I'll let you know when I see a bad M.2 drive. I've never seen a bad one from any manufacturer at all. But the Samsung 970 EVO leads the pack when it comes to performance. If performance wasn't important, I would go with an Intel an Intel 660p 1 terabyte, which you could get for less than half the price of this. But it also runs at less than half the speed. But it's still a lot faster than SATA at basically the same price on the Intel 660p series. So remember, customizing everything for each customer. And the power supply is way overkill for this build, but it enables the customer to add a graphics card down the line should they choose to. This thing will probably not draw more than 200 watts maximum, and that's a 650 watt power supply. So we should be sitting pretty for a number of years. You don't want a power supply that's 300 watts because you're going to have too little overhead, and that power supply is going to heat up because it's working so hard. In the minute the customer adds another piece of hardware, especially a graphics card, it may be too much for that power supply. So if we take care of it now, it's cheaper in the long run to just pay for it now than to have to replace it later. And it gives the customer the option and the peace of mind knowing there's nothing restricting them other than buying any graphics card on the market, any single graphics card on the market they want. They can simply plug it in, hook power to it, install their drivers, and they're done. So that's the beauty of it. You certainly aren't going to get that kind of thing from a typical pre-built machine that you buy from Walmart or Best Buy. And again, that's not important to everybody. So that's why these consultations have to take place to find out where the money needs to go that's best suited for the client. And given that, cheers everybody. Just looking quickly through the chat here. Geo Johnson's contributed $5. He said, I sent you a link to my Google Drive with pictures and a video of my new build. You told me you would like it. Thanks for the inspiration to do it. Right on. I'll have to look for that. I don't recall saying it before we got started. I don't know if you just did that. Guillermo Agadong has contributed $5. He says, aloha from Hawaii. Mahalo, Guillermo. It's all the Hawaiian I know. And howley. That's it. That's from watching Dog the Bounty Hunter. I know all the Hawaiian I know from watching Dog the Bounty Hunter. What else? Hello to Craig Lilly saying hello. Franklin Adams. Joey's contributed $2. Wants to know where I get my shirts from. I don't get my shirts from any one place, but a place that does sell some of the shirts I wear is called Daddy-O's. We've talked about this, I don't know, about 6 or 7 times. So I hope you'll continue to watch the channel and go back and watch previous videos. Colin Hunt contributed £5. Thank you, Colin. And Bamsy Mums contributed 50 Norwegian kroner. Hey, Carey, just want to say hello. Been watching your videos for a long time. Keep up the good work. Learning so much from you. Well, thank you. I appreciate that very much. Rich wants to know if the dogs are around. Yeah, Jimmy's over there sleeping, and Lyle's probably hanging out outside because it's not too hot today, believe it or not. Still hot enough for me to turn my air conditioner down. It's a little warm. Oh, there's Lyle. What's going on, boy? You keeping the house protected? Yeah, we'll crank this AC down. There we go. Good boy. Now go get my screwdriver. He's like, get your own screwdriver. Lyle's got a bit of an attitude problem. And Michael Collis just put a link there to daddyos.com. Thank you for doing that for me. So let's just get the build started today. I'd like to do something a little bit different and try and focus a little bit more on the build than on the conversation. And the reason being is I have a lot of backlog going on right now. Again, I thought I was getting caught up and then I got slammed again. So I'm going to try and get through some of this stuff as quickly as I can. I think if you're looking for a step-by-step how-to, you could probably watch just about any other video I've made, but this one, let's just get some work done and see how it goes. Sometimes people are curious how long it takes me to build a computer if I wasn't chatting so much. And I would say on average, you should be able to expect, to put all the parts together and put into the case. An hour would be fair. If you were really pushing it, you could probably do it in 20 minutes, but I wouldn't want to sell and support a computer that I rushed to put together, especially a computer I have to ship out of state. That would be very disrespectful to my client. Every client deserves the same amount of time and attention to detail. And I don't want to feel pressured by an audience member going, well, it takes you too long, or, what if you just did it as quickly as you could? I have no interest in proving myself to anybody other than my paying customers. And the proof is sort of a tortoise and a hare type of a race. Oftentimes when I try to go as quick as I can, it takes me 2 to 3 times longer because I have to keep correcting stupid mistakes. So I like to move in a, like if I'm not filming this, I would just go at a regular, relaxed pace and enjoy the process. I don't think you can really enjoy it if you're feeling like you're in a race or a competition. And I don't think the customer would appreciate that the machine they're going to rely on for many years was slapped together in a hasty manner. Haste makes waste, right? We're still on the original charge on this screwdriver. I'm still 2 bars here. And then, like I said, I've got another machine very similar to this. Differences, I think, in storage. I can't remember what the differences are. It'll be a 200R, Z370 XP, 8700K, Mugen 5, DVD. I'll probably use a different power supply. Yeah. I always like to start by prepping the case, but there's no reason you have to start with the case. I could start by prepping the motherboard, and I've done that before. It really doesn't matter. A lot of the stuff you see on YouTube are preferences of the creator. And if the creator doesn't encourage you to come up with your own process, then the creator's not really educating you. The creator's just letting you watch how they do it. It's sort of like a little kid watching your mother make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and then dad makes it for you and you don't want it because he doesn't make it the same as mom. Mom puts the peanut butter on first. Listen, eat the sandwich or don't, kid. Here you go. Here's the butter knife. Here's the peanut butter. Here's the jelly. Make it the way you want it. So yeah, that's what it amounts to, is encouraging you guys to understand why I'm doing what I'm doing so that you can follow your own path, but understand why you're choosing the path and what order you have to go in from that point forward. That's what I'd like to see. Not little robots, but people that are able to make the decisions necessary for their unique parts and their unique build and their unique style. Ace Colster's contributed $20. He says, hey, Carey, I love your videos. I can finally watch one of your live streams all the way through without interruption. I'm also a Coca-Cola fan. Well, thank you so much for that. Let's make you a moderator. I appreciate that very much. And Nikolai Lukianov has contributed 50 Mexican pesos. Thank you, Nikolai. And I think that catches me up there on the contributions. So let me just get the parts dumped out here. That's good. And we don't use some bags of screws, so let me just get rid of these. Keep those out. Throw these over here for now. We'll stick the zip ties in there for now. Get the power supply out and get that mounted first and foremost. Yeah, I don't know why EVGA put silver screws with a black power supply. I think that's just a weird decision, and it seems like a pretty minor reason to choose a different power supply. However, for me, the choice is to either find some black computer case screws and buy them in bulk, or to just buy the power supply the way I need it. And, you know, it's the back of the computer. Very few people are going to notice. But that's the kind of detail I take in my builds. A lot of people that say that's good enough, I don't say that's good enough. You very rarely will ever hear me say that. When I'm benchmarking a computer, I'll say, yeah, it's good enough, because we're not trying to set any records or break any records. We just want to make sure the machine runs reliably and is in the ballpark of performance that we expect it to be. And in which case, that's good enough. But what isn't good enough is skipping where screws need to go, or the types of screws, or we'll use whatever we have laying around. That's all fine and dandy for the average home user that's just got nothing to lose. I got my whole business on the line, and there are a lot of customers who appreciate that kind of attention to detail, because it's hard to find people in any career these days that seem to really care and have a passion about what they're doing. So it's something I take great pride in. Let's get the power supply in here. And we'll get the optical drive in while we're here. And the rest of this box is empty. Hey, Lyle. You want this box? You want it? You want to take it? Get it. Get that box. Here. Wait. There you go. You got a handle. Knock yourself out, boy. Good boys. And let's see, where did my live feed go? Here it is. Good, good. The screws for the power supply. So what I was talking about, in the bag with the cables that come with the power supply, we got all these cables. They've included silver power supplies, silver screws for a black power supply and a black case. I don't get that at all. Somewhere back here, I should have some more black screws. I keep forgetting to look for some on Amazon. If anybody has a good source for black hex head computer screws, please let me know, because I need to buy about 100 of them. In the meantime, I do have an extra bag, and we'll use those. And I could use the screws that come with the case, but they're just not deep enough or have large enough heads for me to be comfortable with the weight of that power supply to survive the shipping. If it was something I was building locally here for myself, it wouldn't be a problem at all. Probably wouldn't be a problem the other way either. I'm just a little, have a little anxiety about it, because that's a big, heavy component to come loose in your case during shipping. It'll damage everything. So I've got that screwdriver torque setting down to very low, and I do like to make sure that the screws are turned a little bit tighter than that on the power supply, because again, it's a heavy component, and I have to really emphasize that this is being shipped. It's got to go get packed up, and it'll ride in a truck for hundreds and for thousands of miles. And if that power supply were to break free and bounce around inside, it will destroy everything inside. So we want to avoid that. So we'll make sure the screws are tight. And another contribution's come in here. David DeVillers has contributed $5. He says $5 for a tour of that back room. Not at this time. The back room is a big mess. I probably couldn't even get in there if I wanted to. And Joey contributed $2. He says, what is the silver toaster? You guys. That's a DeLonghi brand toaster. It's funny. Anytime we put toast in it, Lyle takes off outside. I don't know what it is, if it's the smell of the toast or the, it's got a real bell in it. When you set the toast in, it automatically lowers it down. And I paid $100 for that toaster 18 years ago. And I remember somebody said, you'd be crazy to pay $100 for a toaster. And I said, no, that's a toaster that'll last me a lifetime. And so there it is. It still works great. And now everybody wants to buy a Sunbeam T35 series toaster. And on eBay, you're looking to spend about $200. And that was a toaster built in the 1940s that actually toasts bread the proper way. Just Google it. I don't want to get into it. Tom Jackson contributed $2. He says, cheers, mate. Coke and a crisp. Oh, I forgot I have the crisps. I forgot about those. I got to bring out my Walker's crisps. Bacon, smoky bacon flavor. Oh, that's the best. I'm going to put a couple of screws also in the optical drive for the same reason. If it was local, I wouldn't worry about it. But because it's being shipped, I'm going to secure it with 2 screws, one on either side. And that's where you really want to be careful on your torque setting if you're using an electric driver. Always use a magnetized screwdriver, of course. So we'll put one right here. And we'll come around and put one. Well, there's only one place to put it, right there. So we know that's not going anywhere. That's secured in, and it's got a nice flush matching look to it. I really should look up to see if I can find those black computer screws, because I bet you I'll forget again if I don't do it right now. Let's take a quick look. Oh, there's thumb screws. Thumb screws. Ah, here we are. 100 pieces. There it is. That's what I need right there. For $6. And I also saw the computer case screws just below that, a 50 piece for $6.99. We'll add that to the cart. Now I don't have to remember to do it. I'll just do it right now. Proceed to check out. There it is. Place my order. It cost me $13. But now I won't have this problem anymore. I'm tired of it. I've had enough. I shouldn't suffer this much for $13. That's all I'm saying. All right. Grant saying hello from Scotland. Hey, Grant, thanks for joining us. Looks like Peter Brooks has just sent an Amazon link to the exact thing I just ordered. Right on. Yep, those are the black... Those screws in that link that Peter just posted are literally what I just ordered, and they are exactly what is a traditional computer case screw. It's often used Like on the 200R, they're using thumb screws, but they would be anywhere a thumb screw would be used. Those other screws would work. They're the same thread type, they just have a different head on them. So I'm just glad I finally got it done because I've been talking about it. I probably spent more time talking about it than the amount of time it took for me to click the mouse, and now they're going to show up at my door. All over $13. I'm kicking myself. Okay, so power supply is in, optical drive is in, and now I want to put the I/O shield in. I do wish that this board had a black I/O shield, but it's not a deal killer for me. Go faster sticker, we'll put that in there. There's the I/O shield. Place the motherboard on top. And that's really just done so I don't scratch up my countertops with the bottom of the board. Spiky. Back here. Well, that one fought me going in, didn't it? So that's all I do to prep the case. That's it. Now I can prep the motherboard. I usually like to move everything out of the way so I have as much room as possible to work. These 4 thumb screws that I removed the case panels from, I need to put these away. They are the last 4 screws of the build, so we won't need those for a little while. Power cables, I don't need any of these for a little while, so I'll put these over here as well. Always keep your workspace nice and clean so that you don't knock things over or cause any damage accidentally to things. I've done so myself, and ideally I do that as rarely as possible. It's very simple steps to take. Now all the parts for this build are listed in the video notes below the video, so you can duplicate this build or slightly modify it. Perhaps you want different storage. Ooh. Oh. I want everybody to see this. I have never ever encountered this before. You see that this is brand new out of the box. And look through the anti-static bag. Where's the battery for the motherboard? It's gone. It's not in there. How did that get through quality control without a battery? Is it in the bag? Maybe it just came out? The bag is sealed. It's never been opened. Let's find out. Never ever seen that before. Sitting there talking up how great this board is and how I'm using it on a bunch of builds, and then it goes and ships in a way that no other board has ever shipped before. In my 27 years of experience, I've never seen that. Never. Ah, it fell out. All right, that's fine. So yeah, that's where the battery goes right there. Now, when you handle these batteries, it's best to avoid getting your skin oil, oils from your skin on them. The question I have is, did the holder break? Or was it just not seated fully? It's like a weird piece of plastic in here. Put that in. So whether or not you touch the battery, it's not the end of the world. It's fine. That's just really bizarre. And then there's some plastic that's wrapped around the board. And that's the beauty of a live video, is you can see the kinds of problems that one might encounter that are not ever shown, never shown on these polished, high-dollar, professional-looking YouTube videos. And that makes them fairly useless, in my opinion, because they're not based on reality. They're based on entertainment. I hope that mine are entertaining as well, but I hope that they're more useful with the educational content of what you can fully expect if you're going to entertain this process. And that when things do go a little bit differently than you expect, that because I've taught you why I'm doing things, that you can understand how you need to proceed without just being dead in the water because it didn't happen exactly like you saw it on YouTube. You're not a robot. Please don't behave like one. Let's get this zoomed in a little bit so you can see what I'm about to do as far as prepping the board. I'm just going to leave the camera there. I'm not going to move it around because I want to move through this pretty quickly. I don't know what that little plastic piece was, if it was some kind of glue or something that was supposed to hold the battery in, but the batteries, it's held in like any other CR2032 battery there, so it doesn't need any special glue or anything like that. So I don't know what that little piece was, but I've just thrown it away. Now, lots of places we can start. I like to start with the M.2 drive. We can place the M.2 drive either in this location or in this location, because the CPU and the graphics card, if there was going to be a graphics card added, this would be a very high heat area. Down here moves us away from the heat. That's why I'm going to put the M.2 drive right there, and that's where I'm going to start, because it's super easy to do. It'll just take us a minute. We'll start with opening up the package here. Now, on some motherboards, they package the standoff and the screw for the M.2 drive separately in its own little package in the motherboard box. I prefer when motherboard manufacturers leave it installed on the board, both the standoff and the screw, which is what Gigabyte has done here. And let's take a look at, we're going to remove this screw here. This is a #1 Phillips. It's about the only time you use a different size screwdriver is just being able to get into that screw right there. And again, using a magnetized screwdriver helps a bunch to keep that little tiny screw from falling onto the floor and being lost forever. And then this drive will go in here on an angle. Push it in there. Perfect. And I'm going to magnetize this a little bit more because it's a little bit weak. So I have a screwdriver magnetizing tool. All the tools you see me use are available at my Amazon store in the links in this video. So check that out. There we go. Next, oh, there's some documentation in here. We can pull this apart so the customer can have their documentation. There we go. So I build computers because it's a passion I have. And when somebody comes along with a YouTube channel trying to glamorize something that they hold no accountability to, it can have some consequences, some disastrous financial consequences from their viewers. And they don't help their viewers. There's no help from them. And who do those viewers turn to? They turn to me. They go, "Can you help me?" And I end up being slammed with support requests from people that were misled and deceived by other YouTube channels who said, "Hey, we never told you to do it. It's not our fault. You spent your money and screwed it up." I hate that. I absolutely hate that. It drives me crazy. All right, so here's our CPU. We'll pull that out of the box here. And we'll get rid of that box. And then we're going to open this up. And we'll pull this out. Hold it by the edges. Put it in the right orientation. Gently set it into its socket. And then we'll close the lid. Put this away. Next, we can move on to the cooler. Screwdriver that comes with the Mugen 5 cooler is fantastic. Don't need that. We won't be using these parts, or these parts, or these parts, and only some of these parts. Let's see, dump this little thread, this one, standoff, and that standoff will not be used on this build. So all these parts right here, those aren't used unless you're building an AMD or a different type of chip. And finally, we can pull the heatsink out of the box, which can be a little bit of a challenge. Okay, we'll set that over there. Put that one there. And I'm going to start with, let's take a look. The back plate. And we need 2 standoffs. Seems kind of weird. I think what I'll do is I'll go ahead and tighten those 2 down right now. And then we can put the final 2 standoffs in there. All right, now that I've got them all pretty well started, I'm just going to finish torquing them down. I'm always doing opposite corners on anything involving CPU cooling. Pretty much anything else with the computer build, the order in which you put the screws in doesn't matter. That's that. Then I'm going to put the brackets on. What do I do with the other bracket? Oh, I set it on there already. Okay. That one I have to loosen up because I have to get the other screws started before I can tighten them down. Perfect. Now I'll just make sure they're tight with the included screwdriver. It is thermal compound time, so let me grab a rubber glove. All right. Again, Scythe includes a generous portion of thermal compound, something Be Quiet does not do, and Be Quiet will charge you twice as much, and your installation will take far longer than what you've just seen me do with other products. I pick on Be Quiet because they've had a hell of a marketing campaign that's really been designed to showcase the benefits of their product, but it's been less than honest with regards to the downsides of their product. But I guess what marketing campaign talks about the downsides? But it's been so influential, this marketing campaign, that it's just convinced people the right, it's done a very good job of convincing people that they're the superior product and worth the extra money. Because I'm actually held accountable and I have to support these computers, I have to use products that are more aggressively priced, that are easier to install, and that I don't have to get stuck having to buy additional, like for example, thermal compound. Say I put the cooler on wrong for some reason, there's a problem, I had to take it off. I would then have to buy thermal compound because there's not enough with a Be Quiet cooler to apply a second time. And with Scythe, there's at least 3 applications in that tube. And again, it's half the price of the Be Quiet cooler because they're not spending all the marketing money that Be Quiet is spending. So you're paying for that, whether you realize it or not. And you're paying for basically good feelings. It makes you feel good. You're like, oh, I bought a good cooler because I paid more money for it. Just because you paid more money for it doesn't mean it's a better cooler. And just because magazines and YouTube creators have made videos about it, that just means that they're part of the marketing campaign. At least when you see it as often as companies like that do that. So that's not to say what they're saying isn't true, but it is biased in many cases. And my information comes from being able to sustain my business. I don't care how nice a company treats me. I don't care what products they give me. If their products are making me look bad or giving me a bad customer experience, I'm not using their products, and I don't care how much money they give me. Unless they give me enough money where I don't need a business anymore. But then I'll just be like every other YouTube tech creator who doesn't hold any accountability. So I don't want to be like that. It's fine, like I said, entertainment's entertainment, but education, I think, is far more important. And education can be entertaining, I like to think. It's not like they're mutually exclusive. No reason they need to be. All right. And then we'll put the fan on here. Let's see, we want to put the fan on this way. Keep bumping up against my mouse, which is throwing off my my live view. One of these days I'll get 2 monitors and we'll just hook it up that way, but I'll make do with what I've got for now. As long as my primary business is building and repairing computers for customers, and my secondary business is making YouTube videos. So when YouTube videos become my primary source of income, who knows? Maybe I'll turn into the very type of person that I'm warning you against, because that's obviously paying better based on the sheer number I'm up against. I'm going to go ahead and wire tie that cable right now. It's a good time to wire tie this, or zip tie this. I keep saying wire tie, but I mean to say zip tie well it's out of the case and you can get your hands there. And it just takes a minute. And then that just plugs in. It only goes in one direction where it says CPU fan, and that is also a different color than the other connectors around it. And then we can just put the RAM in right now. Doesn't matter which two sockets you use, you just want to skip a socket. So we do the first one, then skip the second one, and do the third one. Or do the second one, skip the third one, and do the fourth one. So you just want to leave a blank socket between the RAM modules if you're only installing two. Now, with different motherboards, that may not be the case, but in the documentation that comes with the Z370 XP we've got here, it clearly states that either is acceptable and results in equal performance. I feel like I need to move this just a little bit over this way. Let's go this way. Let's see, I'll move that away from the fan a little bit. So with those retention levers, obviously are all open, all four are open, even though I'm only using two of them. I just want to make sure that I can hear them click closed and that those two RAM modules are installed, and now I can just close the other ones. You don't have to close them, but it's just cleaner look for anybody that's getting in there later. They might appreciate that. Maybe they won't. Hopefully they have no reason to get in there later, but you never know. That's our cooler install. I'm going to grab just a regular old Ziploc bag, and I'm going to put all the components that are left over from the cooler in a separate bag that the customer gets in case they want to change anything out. You know, if they switch to an AMD system or a different socketed chip in the future, but they still want to continue to use this cooler. And who could blame them? It's a great cooler, and it will accommodate that, probably, some future socket type. Unless it's drastically changed. It's just TR4, the Threadripper socket, it doesn't work on it. These are the extra parts we don't need for the cooler, and those will go with the documentation back to the customer. The same with the screwdriver too. The screwdriver goes with the customer's documentation. Customer owns that. If the customer needs to open the machine up, they have at least the right tool to do it with, and that makes me feel a little better that they're not using a pocket knife or something and potentially stripping the screws or the heads of the screws. Now I do like to put on that 8-pin power connector on the motherboard now, since it's a lot easier to do that now than when it's in the case. And I do have, with the EVGA power supply, we've got a bunch of cables here. This one for the CPU, which is what I need now. And I don't need either one of these, so these can go back. And so right up here in this corner is where that CPU fan is going to go. Did I say CPU fan? CPU power. My mouth does not work as fast as my brain. So when I'm unscripted, sometimes I use the wrong words, saying GPU when I mean PSU, or I go back sometimes, I play these back, I go, what was I thinking? And that's the downside of a live video. Mistakes like, you know, misspeaking. Not the worst crime. You know, when you know the right words, you just, for whatever reason, didn't say them. Imagine how difficult this would be to do this when it's mounted in the case, if I'm struggling this much to do it now. That's one side. There we go. Now that's on there correct. That is on there correctly. I'm going to lay the case flat so I can get the board installed, and we'll back the camera back off now. Guess we could zoom in a little bit more than that. Let's see. Let's go up a little bit. And we'll go that way. I think that'll be okay. Okay. Move that aside. I know I'm going to need that little plastic standoff, so let me go grab one of those. You don't have to use these, as I've discussed. I just have a ton of them since I've been in the business forever. But since I've got them, I'm going to use them. There's a mounting hole on that motherboard that I've never seen a case support before. I don't know why Gigabyte puts it there. In that case, you would just leave that hole empty. You don't need to fill it with anything. But because I do have these little plastic standoffs, I'm going to use one. I just cut the little nub of it off, and then I'm going to just plug it in to that hole, which again, I've never seen any case support that mounting hole, and I've never seen any motherboard manufacturer put that mounting hole in that position except Gigabyte. They're the only ones who do it. So why Gigabyte can't, one of the biggest motherboard manufacturers, cannot get on the same page as one of the biggest case manufacturers is mind-boggling to me. It shows how disconnected management is from the products they manufacture, but or their, you know, the products that their motherboards are no good without the case. And obviously they probably make cases that support that. They want you to buy their case. You're going to have to do better than that. You're going to have to compel me with a better case, not just provide me with a different mounting option hole that only you guys support. That's not enough to compel me to buy your case. It's kind of a sleazy thing to do. But they're not alone in sleazy marketing techniques, even from reputable companies these days. It's all too common. But I'm not going to diminish the value and quality of their product because the people that run their marketing are typical, stereotypical marketing people. And I mean that in the worst way possible. Not that all marketing people are that way, but those who behave that way, well, I don't have anything nice to say about those kind of people. When the money comes first and the customer comes second, that's not sustainable. You take care of your customer first and the money will always come. It does not work the other way around for a very long period of time. People will catch on. They will feel resentful. They will feel like you're treating them like they're stupid. And then they will boycott your company and your products for treating them that way. But hey, enjoy your short-term profits. In the meantime, I will continue to buy the Corsair cases and not the Gigabyte cases. And unless Gigabyte makes a compelling case for me to consider switching, I will not do it simply because they have a mounting hole that supports their motherboards that nobody else does. Not a good enough reason. And let's see, we're going to need 5 screws to mount the board now that we've got it installed. Let me make sure that I don't have the grounding strap blocking anything. Yep, that grounding strap right there. This happens every time I put these boards in. This is one downside of this motherboard, is this I/O shield. Not only is the color wrong, but if you look real carefully, You see this right here? This is not supposed to fold over. That's actually hitting that USB port. I cannot use that USB port. And what I have to do is I've got to lift the motherboard back out, and I've got to push that piece of metal up like that. And then I have to realign the I/O ports and set the board back into position. You see the difference now? This is another bad design from Gigabyte. This was acceptable in the 90s and maybe in the early 2000s. To make I/O shields in this manner where you're just stamping a piece of metal. Gigabyte themselves have other I/O shields that are built better than this. Clearly they're doing it to hit a price point. I would gladly pay a couple of dollars more for this motherboard to have a black I/O shield that does not have the grounding straps, but instead has like a foamed piece of foil back there that'll establish that same ground without that hassle. But it's something you should only have to do once. It's not a huge deal. It's just a shame you have to do it at all. And I'll tell you, it really sucks when you build your own computer for the first time and you don't realize it until after you're all done. You've tested everything, you've installed Windows, or maybe you're going to install Windows and you can't get the flash drive in. And then you have to take everything back out again. So this is the best time to check that now before you proceed further. All right, let's grab a screwdriver. Whoa. Make sure it's magnetized. Heck, I can just keep it on there. That ought to keep it strong. There's 1 of 5. Two of 5. 3 of 5. 4 of 5. And this one's a tight one. I'm going to get right down in there. 5 of 5. Just like that, our motherboard's installed. And with a couple of power connectors and switches, we'd be ready to test fire it here in just a minute. So here we've got the motherboard power connector, and then we've got our front port. All the switches and I/O up here are all wired in with all these wires here that are wire tied to the case. We want all the wire ties removed. See how the cables get snagged up like that? Something really simple. Don't force stuff, because you will easily break these cables or their ends. And something that simple can be frustrating, especially if it's an important part of your build and you're unable to complete the build because you're in a hurry and you get frustrated and you yanked on that cable. So let's see, we'll get our USB plugged in here. And we'll get our audio plugged in. And then motherboard power. we go. Then we need that CPU power connector back here that we plugged onto the motherboard earlier. We need to go ahead and run that in and plug it in as well. Take care of that now. I like to use all the connectors on the bottom first. And then finally, there should be a quick connect in here for the switches and, the switches and LEDs. It's in this little bag. And we'll take a look here and run these individually through. So this is, what is this? Power switch. That's going to go there. Which one is this? Power LED. And then, which one is this? Hard drive LED. And then the reset switch is the only thing left. We'll go ahead and plug that one in. And then we can run that down through there and plug it in. Cable will always go to the left side, and that just plugs right onto this connector. That's it. We're ready to test fire the board. It's pretty much built. Once it's successfully posted, we can update the BIOS and install Windows on it. That's the entire build. We'll have to plug the power onto the optical drive as well as running the data cable and hook up the front and rear case fans, but I don't want to do any of that yet because they're not critical to determining if what we've done so far is been successful. So let me grab the power cable. Make sure the power supply switch is in the off position. We'll grab an HDMI cable here to hook up your monitors to this thing so you guys can see it boot. Since I don't have a monitor here I can use, I'll just use yours. There we go. Right onto the motherboard using the onboard video that comes with our Intel 8700K. It's like an Intel Graphics HD 630, I think is what that is. I need a keyboard and a mouse, so I've got a little wireless combo here. Again, the parts lists are in the video notes below the video in the Amazon store that has these keyboards that I'm using. I like the portable nature of these keyboards. I'm going to plug the wireless keyboard dongle into the USB port up front to make sure that that USB port's working. Switches are turned on the bottom of the mouse and keyboard. They don't operate off traditional batteries. They have a built-in rechargeable battery that lasts about 3 months, and you just hook it up to a USB port to charge them up. And let's go ahead and flip over to, guess I can raise this camera back up a little bit, huh? There we go. We'll go back over to the video input. There we go. So it says no signal because the machine's off. Let's go ahead and turn the machine on. We'll flip the switch here, hit the power switch there. CPU fan is turning. Remember, rear and front case fans are not hooked up. Power light has come on. That's all hooked up properly. Hopefully we'll get some identification on the machine or on the screen of the machine here in just a minute. We call that a power on self-test, or POST, post. So let's make sure the machine does a post, and then we're going to go ahead and update the BIOS. There we go. That's a good sign. Now, I've already downloaded the BIOS from the previous build, which is the same motherboard, same BIOS That's all that's on this little tiny flash drive is that latest BIOS version. I'm assuming I don't have the latest BIOS version. You notice the machine has turned itself off and it's going to turn itself back on. I'm not touching anything. It's initializing itself with the hardware we put in there. Because remember, we could have put any number of different CPUs in there, any different kinds of manufacturers, speeds, and size of RAM. So the first time you turn it on takes a little while. Here it says reboot and select the proper boot device. That's because even though we do have a solid state storage installed, it's blank. They don't know if they're using that in a Mac or a Linux. So it's just blank, unformatted. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the machine back off. I'm going to plug the flash drive into any USB port here in the back. And then I'm going to turn the machine back on, and I'm going to hit the END key, END. On the Gigabyte, modern Gigabyte motherboards, it should take you to the BIOS flash utility, which it has done. And I'm going to get rid of my little picture up here in the corner so you guys can see this more clearly. There we go. So I'm going to hit enter. That's the BIOS F13. Our current BIOS version, which it says over here, is version F8. So we're 5 new versions. You don't have to put in the interim versions. I don't need F9, F10. I don't need those. I just need the latest one. And then I'll hit enter. It verifies that that's the correct file for that motherboard, and then it updates it. Just leave it to update. Don't touch anything. Don't reset it. Don't lose power. Relax and give it just a minute to do its job. It will restart itself. This is not the nerve-wracking process it used to be in the 90s, even in the early 2000s. And now it's pretty much foolproof with any modern computer. And by modern, I mean anything made since about 2007 onward. Should be really no big deal. And while that's happening, I need to go see what version of Windows we're installing. This customer is providing me their Windows. They're not buying it from me. And I need to make sure that we're doing Pro or Home. I have to see what their license key is for. It is Windows 10 Pro. Okay, good. And this machine is for Bill, so when I do the username, I got to remember to use the name Bill. And while I've walked away, it seems the machine is automatically rebooting itself, which is good, all normal. And allow it to do that as many times as it wants to. Do not interrupt it. I can't emphasize how important it is. Until the machine gives you the non-bootable device. You know, it looks like it's turned itself off again. Once again, I am not touching a thing. Everything you're watching is happening live. And this is all normal. I see Tony just contributed $4.99 from Tony Wallow. Hey, Tony, thank you for that. He says, here's to some Coke and some wings. Right on. Thanks, Tony. All right, BIOS has been reset. Perfect. So we'll go over here. We'll just click OK on that. And there's really nothing you have to change in here. There are things that I will adapt, such as turning XMP on and things like that if the memory supports it. We can, for example, turn on Profile 1 on there. And then if you want to monitor, I think in the PC health status, no, that's not it. Miscellaneous? No, that's not it either. There's a place where you can monitor the CPU fan. There it is. So if you want your CPU temperature to alert you if it hits, let's say 90 degrees Celsius, and if your fan is not turning, we'll turn that warning on. It's about the only couple things I change in a BIOS, and they're not critical. And then we'll hit escape and F10, save configuration and exit, yes. Now we'll allow it to do its attempt to boot. There it goes. Now I have a USB flash drive with the Windows 10 installation media, which you can make yourself. Just go to Google, type in how to make Windows 10 installation media. It's free and legal. You still need a license key to activate Windows 10. I'm going to turn the machine off, remove that BIOS flash drive, and install the Windows 10 installation media flash drive. Turn the machine back on, and again, I shouldn't have to touch anything because the only thing the machine can boot to right now is that flash drive. Nothing else is bootable. And as a result, the BIOS should default to anything it can boot to. And here we go. I'm going to use the mouse to select next. If you hit enter on your keyboard, it doesn't do anything because you're hitting enter on language to install. So if you wanted to use the keyboard, you'd have to tab, 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 then you could hit enter on next. But if you're wondering why it does that, that's why. We'll hit install now. And I'm going to say I don't have a product key for right now. Never enter your product key during the install. Basically, putting your product key in now will select your Windows version for you, but I know we're going to put in Windows 10 Pro. Hit next. If you have multiple hard drives, wait, let me accept the license agreement. If you have, we always choose custom install. And if you have multiple hard drives, do not hook them up. Only hook up the drive you want to install your operating system to so that you're not confused by which drive to select. Drive 0 may not be the drive you want. But if you've only hooked up one drive, whatever that one drive is, that becomes drive 0. So in this case, it's our 1 terabyte Samsung 970 Pro, or 970 Evo rather, M2 NVMe drive, and I'll hit next. And it's going to go ahead and format it's going to do multiple partitions, format those partitions, and install Windows while we wait. So now, we wait. If you guys have any questions in the chat room while we're waiting for Windows 10 to install, which is only going to take a minute on this beast, I'd be happy to entertain any technical questions you have at this time. I'm just looking through the comments right now to see if there's any technical questions in there I can help anybody with. Want to know why I'm using a modular power supply? Because that's what the customer wanted. Anytime you want to know why I'm using certain parts, the answer is always because that's what the customer wanted. If I'm building a computer for you, I will install the parts you want, not what some stranger on the internet demands to know. You must qualify this to me. None shall pass. I was just curious. Well, your default answer should be, that must be what the customer wanted, because that's what Carey does for a living. He's not running a YouTube channel that's an enthusiast channel where he just gets free parts from manufacturers and he uses whatever they send. So what other reason would there be? I don't know. That's weird. Roger wants to know if saving $40 on a refurbished Z370 worth it. I would not sell a customer a refurbished motherboard. Absolutely not. It's the foundation upon which everything is built around. Is that the component you want to cheap out on? I'd buy a refurbished laptop. It's not worth the aggravation that the gamble of saving $40 could put me in a very bad situation with a customer. That would cost me a lot more than the $40 savings. All right, let's take a look here. John wants to know where the graphics card is. The graphics card is built into the CPU. You might have recommended modular. Well, yes, after talking to the customer, that's what I do. The customers don't tell me what parts to order. I ask them what their needs are, and based on their needs, I recommend their parts. I thought I was pretty clear on that, but okay. I'm not quite sure you guys really have a handle on how selling a computer works, but it's really important you speak to your customer and you understand your customer's needs, budget, expectations, and that you then make recommendations of parts based on the information provided by the customer, based on the questions that you ask. If you do not ask the right questions, you will not get useful answers and you will end up with an unhappy customer. Too many unhappy customers, no more business. Is that power supply overkill for this configuration? In its current state, yes. But as I mentioned in the beginning of the build, there is the option for the customer to add a graphics card in the future. Whether they decide to do that in a week or a month or a year or 2 or 3 years, all they have to do is put the graphics card in, plug the modular cable in, and they have to not replace any other parts or spend any more money, which saves them money in the long run, also prevents them from having to redo the entire cable management, and turns what could otherwise be a simple job into a much more complicated job. Remember, I'm building computers for people that are not computer enthusiasts. They are people that need to get work done or they don't have time to do it, and they're entrusting me for that. And I'm making decisions based on our consultation on, whether or not we should prepare for that future. A lot of people simply don't know the future. They say, well, at this point, I don't have any need for a graphics card, but it's entirely possible. In a year or two, I might absolutely have to have one. And I like the idea of spending $10 more right now so I don't have to buy a whole nother power supply for another $100, redo all the cable management, and then hope I got the right power supply and have to, for example, just plugging that CPU power connector in with the board installed in the case. That is not for a first-time builder to deal with after the fact because they want to change their power supply. So, there's items like that people who understand how to build a computer have absolutely forgotten that they, not too long ago, didn't know how to do it. Somebody taught you how to do it. And you should hold that consideration for the vast majority of computer owners that do not have your knowledge. You need to take a step back and realize nobody was born with this knowledge, and stop being an elitist snob and questioning the parts that are selected from somebody in business for 27 years. Questioning the selection of parts is, it's suggesting, on one hand, it's suggesting that you know better than I do when you've never talked to the customer. If you're trying to understand why, you would have to hear the conversation. There's nothing I can explain to you in detail without reliving that whole conversation and what led to that. So I'm afraid you're not going to get the answer you want, the answer you're looking for. But if you're interested in that, like I said, I do have a consultation that was recorded on a previous video, and you can get a feel. All the consultations are a little different. They move in different directions based on the answers I'm provided. It's not like it's a form somebody fills out. I have to actually speak to them and adapt to their answers, which lead to other questions. And before you know it, an hour to 90 minutes has passed by, and then I have a good idea of what research I have to do to put the parts list together. Catherine can tell you all about it. So Catherine is also putting parts lists together, and she'll do the exact same thing, where she really investigates and talks to the client. And before that she makes any parts recommendations. You typically don't get that on websites, on the internet, free support sites that just give you a list of what they think is good for them with no consideration for you. And that's fine with me. Just understand the difference. That's all I want you to do. Because if they steer you wrong and they sell you, they have you buy parts that you absolutely hate, that's your fault. In many cases, people don't use their real names online because they're cowards. It's the only reason somebody doesn't use their name online is because they're a coward. This idea that, well, I have my privacy. Yeah, you want your privacy because you're a coward. So I just have no movement on that. There's nothing you're going to say that's going to change my mind. Anybody that wants to hide behind a fake name and not show a picture of themselves is a coward. And if you want to take advice from a coward, I won't stop you. Whatever excuse they've got for being a coward, they're still a coward. When somebody stands up and be counted and they say, here's my name, here's my phone number, here's how you can reach me if you have any problems, these are people whose advice would be worth considering. Otherwise, they're just noise. They're just static. And they're all over the internet. The internet is rife with cowards hiding behind their keyboards. JV's contributed $15. He says, I installed a new Mugen 5 CPU cooler and upgraded to SSD, and the difference is night and day on my gaming PC. It was fun to do, and the results after, it's fun to do and see the results after, and it's tempting to continue. Thank you, Carey. Right on, JV. Good job. Yeah, there's some things you just have to experience, and I'm glad you did. Now you see what I'm talking about, right? Now you understand in a more profound way than I can ever explain. Okay, we got our desktop up. Let's go to Windows Update. Let's grab those updates. I'm going to grab an Ethernet cable so we can get this thing plugged in and start getting those Windows updates downloaded. Let's see. Done with this flash drive. And we'll plug in the Ethernet cable. Plug the other end into the router. There we go. And then we're going to hit Windows Update now. So the minute I plugged it in, the Windows is going to start updating in the background. But that's okay. So we're going to have double updates going on. Patrick says, thanks, Carey. Great show. Hey, thank you, Patrick. Thanks for joining me. Disco Meat says, I have a fake name and even I don't believe anything I say. Well, at least that's honest. We're going to retry this again. See if we can get this thing to grab some updates for us here. Your device is missing. We couldn't install because there's a problem with the date and time. Oh, okay. Yeah, clearly. There, self-adjusted. See, Windows 10 takes care of a lot of things for you in the background. And when you start turning off all these issues based on privacy, you start having to do a lot of stuff by hand yourself, and you don't have anywhere near the privacy you think you've got. And I'm slightly amused by the people that think that by running a VPN, they're being tracked. And I want to clarify this for you. If you're running a VPN, you are not exercising much more privacy than without it. All a VPN is doing is it's encrypting the information sent between you and the site that you're communicating with. So as far as the site leaving cookies on your computer, which is primarily how you're being tracked, that's still happening. Those cookies are still recognized, especially advertising cookies as you go from site to site to site. They don't know more about you or less about you because of a VPN. They perhaps don't know your original source of IP address, but that really is inconsequential for the most part. When you're using a VPN, services like Show Me Restaurants Near Me will not work. Typically VPNs will be located in an entirely different country or another part of the country you're in. Usually they're out of the country. And so a lot of services that people consider to be concerns of privacy are actually there to help you. And nobody really gives a rat's behind about you and what you're purchasing. They're simply automated software that is processing hundreds of thousands of queries every microsecond. And you don't stand out amongst all the other hundreds of thousands. Nobody honestly cares. The companies want to issue marketing towards your interests. And as a result, a lot of people don't realize that the very thing that they're doing to hide themselves could be the thing that lands you in jail. And the reason I say this is if you look at Yelp, somebody will say, I ate at this restaurant and I went to this doctor's office. And now let's say somebody says, we have a claim that you were involved in this crime on this day and at this time. Can you prove to me you weren't there? Well, information such as the tracking cookies and Yelp and things like that can be used to exonerate you. They can be used to as an alibi, as a legitimate alibi that proves that you were not in that place at that time. And yet you will have shot yourself in the foot worried about your privacy that nobody gives a rat's behind about. Unless you're a celebrity or a public figure, nobody cares. Honestly, it's not people looking at it, it's just machines. And then of course the hackers that hack into the companies you do business with. So let's say you use a VPN to make all your purchases, right? Well, then the company that you made the purchases with gets hacked, which is very common. And now they have all your information, your address, your credit card, your payment process, all of that is now in the hands of the hackers. There's information you can't control in America, a social security number, and the companies that control that, like Equifax and TransUnion, have absolutely no accountability. They're multi-billion-dollar corporations that control the laws and manipulate the laws to their benefit, and they can never do any wrong to any financial damages. They've created laws to protect themselves and to increase their bottom line profit, and there's nothing you can do about it. So when they get hacked and all of your private identity gets stolen, there's absolutely no legal recourse for you as an American citizen, even though you did not voluntarily or willingly participate in the collection of that information. And a VPN would not help you there either. VPNs are primarily useful in pirating software or pirating music or movies. Some sort of piracy is where most people use VPNs. Let's just be honest. Other people will use VPNs in business for security of financial transactions or private business information, but home users typically use VPNs for one primary reason, and that is piracy. Now, that's not to say all home users do, but I'm saying the vast majority, more than 50% of home VPN users are using it for reasons that they know they don't want to get caught. A lot of people that deal in child pornography are very familiar with VPNs. And yet they still get busted. The VPNs are not giving you the security they think they're giving you. And I'm kind of amused by it because there's such a lack of understanding, having grown up with computers and understanding how it transmits and how all of this works. It's a little humorous to me that some people have oversimplified it to the point that you think you can just do this one thing and you're fine. It's absolutely not true. In fact, the government just worked with the United States government worked with another government, was it the Dutch government, and shut down a big Tor website. They actually confiscated the servers, which has everybody's shipping address, everybody who ever ordered these illicit things, drugs and whatnot, from Tor browser with a VPN, all that information is exposed. They can trace the Bitcoin that's being used, or the cryptocurrency that was used to make the purchase. There had to be a shipping address. They can follow the shipping address. Right now, they're just going after the people that ran the site. They had literally millions of dollars that they made, and they were just getting ready to cash out and shut the whole thing down. And they were not protected like they thought they were. Nope. So the idea is that if you just do everything the way you're supposed to, if you're not trying to break the law and screw somebody over, you should be fine. And the need for that VPN should only be for business needs, for things like taxes and accounting and medical and things, private information that you don't want eavesdropped on, not necessarily for pirating software, movies, music, and illegal activities, whatever that happens to be. However, if it makes you feel good, don't let me stop you. I'm not telling you not to use one. I just want you to understand it is not what you think, most of you think it is. And like I said, cookies, browser caches, when you go to a website, your ISP still knows what website you're going to. They still get the DNS request. It's still being processed. And it's nothing compared to what your phone collects on you. Your phone has more on you than you could possibly imagine. Google will collect the information through the VPN, no problem. They have a tracking on your computer. It doesn't locate the computer, but they know that specific computer and everything it's done. So there's nothing a VPN will do to prevent that. Sorry if I shattered your illusion of security, but just trying to keep it real, folks. Jim says, I use VPN to get around Major League Baseball blackouts. Is that okay? No, that is illegal. You think, it's sort of like saying, you know, when the rail comes down to keep you from crossing the train tracks, I drive around that. Is that okay? No, that's why that was blocked, so that you didn't drive around it. You're not supposed to see it. It's blacked out in your area for a reason. It is absolutely content theft. But I don't care. I'm not the police. I'm not here to police the internet. I'm just here to make you aware you are violating the law when you skirt around these things to do illegal activities. It is illegal. Now, it's not murder. It's not like a major crime. And chances are they wouldn't come after you unless, like, let's say you owned a sports bar and you were paying, you just had customers coming in to watch a baseball game or any other, NFL or any other major sporting league game. And it was blacked out in your area and you're grabbing it through a VPN and showing it to your customers, and your customers are giving you business and staying at your establishment buying beer and food or drinks and food during the duration of that game. Major League Baseball or these places will come after you if they find out, because you've profited off of them. As a home user, you probably don't have anything to take. They probably won't come after you. But regardless if they come after you or not, it shouldn't be about what the punishment is. It should be about, is what you're doing right or wrong? And using a VPN just to secure or to skirt around issues does not make it right. Whether there's punishment or no punishment is irrelevant. Some people think as long as you don't get caught, you can break whatever law you want. I don't subscribe to that. Let's see how we're doing on our updates. Oh, it's time to restart already. Let's do that now. And we'll come back. We'll wait for that to restart. What I think will be interesting, and it's really just a matter of time before somebody does it, is there'll be a hacking group, if they haven't done it already, that'll create a cheap or free VPN. And that VPN will be used to capture all of your information that you will willingly and voluntarily hand over under the illusion that you're being secure. How do you know you're being secure? Like when you pay for your VPN, what evidence do you have that you're secure? How do you know that the VPN is not a fake VPN being run by a bunch of hackers at a really cheap or free price in order for you to surrender your bank account information, login information, all your passwords? How do you know that's not happening? Just saying, how do you know? How do you have confidence that you're dealing with a reputable company? When the government that company exists in says that we're going to install software on your computer and you're going to keep your mouth shut about it, or we're going to put you in jail and shut your company down, how do you know that that company is not going to abide by that government's rule? Oftentimes you won't find out about it until it's long done. So when the government takes over a server on the Tor browser on the dark web, they don't tell anybody they've done it. You have no idea. So you go back and you conduct your transaction with your VPN and your cryptocurrency, and you're dealing with the government, and they're recording that transaction and they're tracking that package or whatever it is you've ordered right back to the address you've sent it to, and they just trace it right back to you. It's really not a big deal, and you won't know what happened until after it's done. And then you'll read about it in the news, a year or two later. Like, you won't know about it for a long, long time because the government will keep that secret for obvious reasons. So if you don't engage in those kind of illegal activities, you don't have anything to worry about. It's really not a big deal. But if you're the kind of person that likes to gamble, you go right ahead. Let's go back to Windows Update. Check to see if we got any more updates here. Looks like John has contributed $50 by PayPal. Hey, thank you, John. That was a computer we built. John AJ1 there is the person that built the computer for stock trading. And today would have been the first day of business with the market open with the new computer. How did it perform for you today, John? I'm curious. Are you happy with it? Andrew Dorset's contributed $5 New Zealand dollars. He says, here's another donation towards the next PC community giveaway. Right on. Yeah, we've got 2 other machines ready to go, 2 more Dell Optiplex 7010s that are ready to rock and roll, and maybe get to that Wednesday or Thursday, maybe another giveaway. John says it was great. Right on, John. That's what I love to hear. Another happy customer. It stinks that certain content is blocked just because I'm in a different country. Yes, I agree. There's shows I would love to watch on BBC that I have to wait for, like Peaky Blinders will be starting up again. And I will have to wait for that to be available on Netflix if I want to watch that legally. If I don't want to watch it legally, there are always ways around it. And like I said, for those kind of crimes, there's very little enforcement, really not a whole lot to worry about. But you're essentially stealing somebody's content that costs millions of dollars to create. And if everybody does that, that content goes bye-bye. And maybe that'd be a good thing. Maybe it'd be a good thing if everybody just stole all their media, steal your music and steal your movies, and then they just stopped making them. And then it would force you to have to get off your butt and actually do something. That wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for the people. Maybe for the creators who made the content, that's not so good for them. They don't deserve it. But for the people that it's made for, maybe they need to get off their butts and start making some content. And when they realize how expensive and time-consuming and difficult it is, maybe they would have a different attitude towards that in the future. Just maybe. All right, let's restart again. People often act like this entertainment is so important, whether it's a baseball game or a television show. If I don't watch Peaky Blinders, it's not the end of my life. It's not like my whole world revolves around a television show. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. If that all your life is, just being entertained, do something. John Wilson has contributed $60. He goes, here's for the next PC giveaway. Thank you, John. And Marty UL's contributed $2. Thank you, Marty. All right, let's go back and check Windows updates. I think we should be all caught up now. Oh, no, we still got another update going on. Copying and stealing is not the same thing. It absolutely is exactly the same thing. It absolutely is. But that's speaking through the ignorance of somebody who's never spent their time and effort to create something only to have somebody steal it. Stealing is stealing. And if you don't rightfully own something, you have no right to take it. If you take something that you do not own and does not belong to you, you should expect resistance. Just saying, that is human nature. People work far too hard and sacrifice a lot of their life to make some of the content, to make the software, to make the video games, to make the music. They dedicate their life to it. For you to just step up and steal their life's work with a click of a button and say it's not stealing because I'm just copying something they already made. The point of the creation is to be able to finance more creation. And if people are just copying their creations, there's no more finance for them to create anymore. So it's a great way to punish somebody you don't like, is to just download all the TV shows you hate. But that's not what people do. You don't download the music you hate and punish those artists in the hopes that they don't make any more music. You download the music that you like, and you punish the artists and discourage them from making any more music that you might like. Think about what you're doing. The only person you're ultimately hurting is yourself. But again, not my place. I'm not a police officer. I just want you to be aware of the consequences your actions have on the creators. And I would encourage you to create something that other people want, and then let somebody tell you that they just copied it, they didn't steal it. Let's see how you feel about it. It's just a level of ignorance there that is mind-bogglingly narcissistic and very inconsiderate. You don't understand the value. Here we go. We're going to run the Uncle Carey's optimizer on the computer. Paul from Mars contributed $5. He says, great video and thumbs up for Linda's first video. Yeah, Linda did a good job on that video, didn't she? The laptop hard drive upgrade. Man, that boots up quick, doesn't it? Look at that. Nice. All right. Well, that's our Windows 10 installed, all the drivers that we need installed through Windows 10 automatically. I don't need the Windows 10 optimizer on there anymore. That's done. And yeah, that Windows 10 optimizer is a little tool that was created by myself and Nick Shaw over at d7xtech.com. If you guys want to buy it, it's $10. There's nothing it does that you can't do by hand, but it just does a lot, and it does it very quickly. And if you're working on a bunch of machines like I am, it's a big time saver, and it makes sure that all the machines get done consistently, that I don't forget a step. And you know, that app at $10, you know, I'm never going to get rich off of it. And I don't have any copy protection in it, speaking of stealing people's work. But there's nothing I can do to prevent you from stealing it. But if you want to support the channel, if you want to see me work on my next app with Nick, something that's going to be even better, then it's important you support the project. If you don't see value in the project, then you shouldn't need it, and you shouldn't want it. But if you want it, if it's desirable enough for you to want, $10 is not a lot of money. It's not like you're going to say, well, you have more money than me, so it's okay for me to take it. First of all, I don't. And secondly, that doesn't make it right, even if I did. But I'm not going to punish you, and I'm not going after anybody who copies it. I'm asking you to do the right thing. And if you choose not to, then don't. You know, it is what it is. And if it turns out that I can't make enough money to make it worth my while to spend the time and investment to create another app, I'll never make another one again, and I hope you enjoy it. And on the other hand, if people do support it, then it'll encourage me to continue to update it, make it better, and continue with other ideas and new apps. So the future is in your own hands, how you guys work as a group. You know, a few bad apples aren't going to ruin it for everybody, but if there's enough people that are stealing it, I will never waste my time like that ever again. So. All right, well, I think that's going to wrap up today's build. We're essentially done here. It's a pretty fast process. And let me switch back over to my main camera. There we go. Garth wants to know if that 8700K is a bad choice because you have to pay for the cooler. The i7 coolers that come with the i7s are inadequate, in my opinion. They're too noisy. One of the advantages of going with the Mugen 5 is it's a very affordable cooler. The 8700, any series of i7 chip, in my opinion, should have a third-party cooler. And I don't think there's a better third-party cooler, easier to install at a better price than this Mugen 5. So even if I had a Core i5, I would want to put that on there because it's still quieter than Intel's choice and it's far superior in cooling performance. If you want to nickel and dime your build, I'm not the guy you want to see on YouTube. There's other guys on YouTube that'll show you how to build a crap box. If you want to build a crap box, I don't support crap boxes because I wouldn't be in business for 27 years. So I want you guys just to consider for a minute that after 28 years, it's not, I keep saying 27, after 28 years in business, questioning me suggests that you are missing a very key ingredient to what I'm doing. And there's just no other evidence than time, right? So if you try and build a business on building junk boxes that are the cheapest you can get them, you probably won't be in business for 28 years. I've seen it over and over and over, and they just fail, they fail, they fail, they fail, they fail. That's one of the reasons why they fail. I'm not making it really any money on the builds. These parts are being sold, or rather they're being purchased wherever the customer wants to purchase them. I'm not selling these computers. I think you guys misunderstand. I don't sell computers. I build them. Where you want to get your parts is entirely up to you. But the ones that I build, I support. So I'm not going to build a computer that's junk, that's going to eat up all my time over the phone and tarnish my reputation as a builder because somebody's trying to save some money at my expense. That's no way to run a business. At the same time, I'm not going to have a customer, have some outrageous parts list that's very expensive, because then that gets us right back to support problems again. And on top of that, an even angrier customer when they spend that kind of money. So those kind of customers really should buy locally, where they have local support that can come on site and help them if you have that kind of money. So these parts are purchased primarily through Newegg or Amazon or wherever the customer wants to find the best price. There's absolutely no reason a chip is offered by a manufacturer that nobody wants. It's just never happened. And so if it's not appealing to you, then it's not right for you, but that doesn't make it not right for everybody. And so there's this lack of consideration that seems to exist, and it's called narcissism. And it's where people only think of themselves and their own needs and their own abilities, and they just don't have it within them. Maybe their parents didn't raise them right. They don't have it within them to have empathy or to consider that there are people's needs that aren't theirs. You know, you might like a certain pair of shoes. I don't care. You're welcome to like whatever shoes you want. And if you pay $300 or $400 for a pair of shoes and somebody says, well, you could have got a pair over at the Walmart for 20 bucks, right? My dad does this to me with sunglasses. I live in the desert and I have some pretty nice, expensive Oakley and Ray-Ban sunglasses because I live in a desert. I think living in a desert, investing in a good pair of sunglasses is a good idea because how much are my eyes worth? My dad will say, well, I got these sunglasses for $10. I go, that's great. And the lenses are horrible. You know, they're not optically accurate. They don't do a very good job. They're not particularly stylish. But my dad's like, yeah, I've had them 10 years. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not telling you you have to do what I do. I never said that. I'm simply stating this is what I do and this is why I do it. And for things that are important to me. And if I live in, if I go back to Michigan, I guarantee you I'll have a really good set of snow tires on my car when the winter comes. I won't buy the cheapest jacket I can get. I'm going to buy the best jacket. It's going to keep me warm. If I'm looking for a life preserver because I'm going out on a boat, I'm not going to look for the cheapest life preserver on sale. How much is my life worth? But at the same time, I don't have to buy the most expensive one either. I just don't have to buy the cheapest. And I think that's the best attitude to have for anything you rely on, from a car to a computer. You know, try and find that middle ground that fits your unique lifestyle, budget, expectations, and don't put that on other people. That is so blind and so callous. And I find it the biggest disappointment in behavior in society today is this lack of consideration for the needs of others. Why do they make an 8.5 shoe? Who wears an 8.5 size shoe? A lot of people, that's not you. It's weird. It's just weird. Carey, look into shady raised glasses. Okay, I don't. Maui Jims. Yeah, I got a pair of Maui Jims. I still have a pair of sunglasses that I bought from the original Men in Black movie. They were called Ray-Ban Predators. I still have them. Every pair of glasses I've ever bought, I still have them. I take really good care of them because they're expensive, and I don't steal things, and I don't want things stolen from me. And so I take very, very good care of things that I've worked hard for. If you're somebody who just gets stuff for free, if your parents provide everything to you, I feel bad for you. You're like that little dog Paris Hilton carries around in her purse. What purpose does your life have? Unless you're a kid. If you're a kid, of course. You know, if you're under 18 years old. But if you're over 18 and your parents are still taking care of you, I feel really bad for you. What a precious time being squandered away that you could be using to change the world. Nick says people just don't seem to get it, and you're never going to get through to them. They just don't seem to get that this is all at the customer's request. Well, that's okay. There's lots of new people that join the channel all the time, and they might be the first time here, and so it does require me to keep repeating myself time and time again. Carey, I need your address so I can send you my new Z370 XP and 16 gig RAM. I think you still have my email address. You can reach me, excuse me, over at tech-vets.com. You'll see there's a contact us there, and you can email me through that link. I have probably 100 different messages coming in either through Facebook, YouTube comments. Well, forget YouTube. There's 100 comments every day. Email, there's 3 different email addresses. They all sort of funnel into one. LinkedIn messages. There's well over 100 messages. So for you to say to me, you have my address, you're in a stack of about 30,000 other people in my inbox. I don't know who you are. I'm sorry. I don't know who you are. So you will have to reach out to me. I'd be happy to help you. This person doesn't quit. I'm just saying the 8700 is cheaper. Yes, it's cheaper because it's slower. It's a slower chip. If you want to, you know what's cheaper than that? An i5. You know what's cheaper than that? An i3. Why don't we just put a Pentium D in? Is that our goal? Are we racing to the bottom? Are we trying to see how little we can actually live with? Who wants to live that way? That's weird, man. That's weird. Price for performance, the 8700K is a bargain. Price for performance, the 8700 is not. It is not price for performance the best buck, the best buy for the buck. It simply isn't. And repeating yourself over and over and over again won't change that fact. Now, it might be good enough for you, and it might fit your budget because you may not be interested in the best bang for the buck. You might be interested in how many bucks, how much can I get for this much bucks? In which case, your scenario could be correct for your needs. But your needs are not the needs of this customer. And for you to establish that and to make that connection is narcissism. You don't know the customer. You don't understand why things were selected, and you won't respect it, which is bizarre to me. It's as if I have just by luck run a business for 28 years when I have no idea what I'm doing. But thank God you were here to correct me. You don't know what people are thinking. So if there's any final technical questions, I'd be happy to answer them if they're not contradicting me, trying to embarrass me on my stage, or trying to imply that you're smarter than I am. You're welcome to start your own YouTube channel. I won't get in your way, and I'm sure you'll get tons and tons of viewers, and I encourage you to do it. But in the meantime, those of you that are supportive and can appreciate the value of the content that I bring to you, I am absolutely happy to answer any technical questions that you have, and continue to build this community with people that have the right attitude and share the right perspective and show respect to others who are different than them. You're on a soapbox channel. Yeah, it typically turns into that sometimes, but that's how we weed out some of the people that are trying to stir a pot. I don't know why people can't leave each other alone. I don't know why that's so difficult to have this competitive nature to prove that you're smarter, or to prove any need to approve or get approval is a road that I don't want to take, and I don't want any of you to take it here in the chat room. Just be yourself and let other people be themselves, and like them for that. Don't punish them because they think differently or look differently. That is not the community we're building here. You can get that anywhere else on the internet. It's not hard to find that. Lourdes7 has contributed $2. Thank you, Lourdes, for your contribution and your support. Scott says, it's great to see a live stream while I'm on holiday. Right on. Well, enjoy your holiday, Scott. If you create a newer install drive, will there be less updates? Yes. Well, so the newer install drive being the current version of Windows. When the next version of Windows 10 comes out, then I will obviously be using that, which will have fewer updates than this current version. But in between versions, it would be too time consuming for me to streamline the updates into it. It's faster for me to do it this way. But it's possible to integrate those in if you have nothing but time, or you're doing, hundreds or thousands of installs that make that worth your while. One of the benefits of doing the updates after an install is to ensure that the updates are working, that Windows Update is working. I don't want to send a computer to a customer where I didn't use Windows Update because I streamlined everything in the build. And then the customer calls me and says, how come my Windows updates don't work? Oh, I don't know, I never tested it. Again, the thoroughness that comes with accountability and responsibility to building a computer for another person or entity or corporation, it'd be like saying, well, what if you just took a pre-built motor and threw it in the ambulance without testing it? So when the ambulance has somebody who's dying and the engine won't start, then that person dies because you took a shortcut as the mechanic. It's different when you're working on your own car. But when you're held accountable to financial losses, loss of productivity, lost customers who couldn't wait and went somewhere else, the serious nature of what a technician does, it gets very stressful. And it's very important, if you want to stay in business, that you dot all your I's, cross all your T's, and do everything reasonable and still make a profit to get the customer the computer as quickly as possible without having to come back to fix anything. And you'll have a happy customer that'll come back time and time again. Matt says, IT is the most dark, brown-nosed, and backstabbing industry I've experienced. Not me. No. I don't think IT compares to most government positions in just about any government job. The behavior that I witnessed at the Department of Environmental Quality in Phoenix was a throwback to the behavior of high school popularity contests, backstabbing, and gossip, just unfactual, fictional gossip from 50-year-olds. It was just like looking at 14-year-old behavior in a 50-year-old body. And it was shocking to see how prolific it was throughout many of these government jobs. And that's not to say everybody who works in government, but it seems like a disease that's extraordinarily contagious and affects a lot of people in government. From my own anecdotal experience, from numerous government agencies, from the school system, the administrators of the school system, the Department of Environmental Quality, the power and water, the local city government and city council, it is profoundly corrupt and immature a lot of times. The behaviors that I see from what should be mature adults in a highly responsible position that's entrusted by the community is shockingly disappointing. I'm not going to change that, so I don't participate in it. and I don't engage with them in any way anytime I don't have to. Bill Carter's contributed $5. He says, thanks, Carey. Great build. Can you please put a case badge on my case? Where would you like it, Bill? Where would you? So let me grab a case badge for you. Oh, I'm starting to run out of these. So these are the case badges that I put on systems that I build. They're a little different than the case badges I sell. Instead of saying inspired by Carey Holzman, they say handcrafted by Carey Holzman. And that's what it looks like. It's a longer, skinnier badge with my signature to the side instead of underneath. I don't know where you want it. So the problem with this case is there's not a real good, we could stick it up here on the top. Or like I would usually hide it in the back, like right over the top of the power supply, right back there, where it kind of looks centered. Or I'll just leave it in the plastic bag and you can put it on wherever you want, and I'll include it in the motherboard box, which is what I do with all my builds. And the other thing I can do for you if you want is I can take a silver Sharpie and sign and date the inside of the panel. So if you take this panel off, you'll have my autograph if you want it. So let me know what you want. I'm happy to accommodate. Lower front in the middle. Lower front in the middle. Let's take a look at what he's saying here. Running out of cable. I'm gonna have to turn the machine off. Hold on a second so I can spin it. Let's go back to that. Let's turn this off. Okay. Lower front in the middle. Lower front in the middle. I don't know. What do you think? I'm gonna just hold it here, and I have to wait like 90 seconds for Bill to be able to see it, and then he can tell me up, down, left, or right. That would be great to have your signature. All right, I'm gonna just remember that position, and while I'm waiting for Bill to respond, let's grab his case panel. Okay. I got a silver Sharpie. Here we go. So this will go on, obviously it's going to go on that way, right? So when you take this panel off, anytime you want to work on the computer, I can just sign it right in here. And then I hate to put people's names and stuff on it, because if you want to sell the computer later, by having it personalized. So what I'll just do is I'll sign it, and then today is 5/6/19. How's that? And then nobody will see it, right? It'll just be something is there when you open it up. Signature might be worth something when he has cardiac arrest from all that cola. Yeah, you might be right. But I'll die happy. Over the logo on the bottom. Well, the problem is that logo is bigger, I think. Will it cover the logo? Let's see. Let's see if it'll cover it. Oh, it will. Yeah, we can do that. I'll do that for you, Bill. I normally don't put these on for the customer. I let the customer do it so they can put it on how they want it. Some customers don't trust themselves to have a steady enough hand or to center it properly. But the trick is to just set it gently. Don't press it too hard so you have an opportunity to correct sort of left and right. There we go. Then you press it down both sides, and it's done. Let's run a benchmark on the hard drive. I want to show you how fast that Samsung drive is. If you've never seen one, how fast one is before, it's going to blow your mind. And you can download the same benchmark and run it on your computer that you're watching this on, just to give yourself an idea of how your computer compares, at least in storage speed, to this one. Let's fire this back up. Thank you, Bill. And thanks for allowing us to share your build on the channel. We have about 1,100 viewers that, we're upwards of 1,250 viewers earlier, enjoying your computer going together, which wouldn't have been possible without you. So thank you so much for that. So here's my utilities flash drive. Let me plug that back in. That's where I have the Crystal Disk Mark utility. Once I figure out which way to put the flash drive in. There we go. And we want Crystal Disk Mark. There it is. And let's run it. So a hard drive will get up to 200 megabytes a second on a really expensive big hard drive. With a SATA drive, 550, 560 megabytes a second. And as this, you can see, is at 3,502 megabytes a second, which pretty much saturates the data bus. The data bus can't move much more than that, than what it's moving right now. The technology will have to be improved to like PCIe 4, because we're on PCIe 3.0. So when we go to 4.0, then hopefully we'll see an increase in the possible speeds. But right now, that's about the maximum you can achieve. So putting in like a RAID 0 where you've got two drives working at the same time will actually result in greater latency and slower speeds. That's how fast this technology has become. Past Me has contributed €5. He says, sorry, my English is not so good. That's okay, neither is mine. Thank you for supporting the channel. I appreciate that very much. Lotto1 says, the minute I applied your case badges to both of my PCs, they immediately ran faster and more reliably. So I'll still have to do the cable management here on Bill's case, but that's a minor little thing. And then hopefully we'll get it shipped out here within a day or two, and then he'll have it a few days after that. Let's see what kind of write speeds we're going to get on this. Probably around 2,500, I would guess. Ben DeCurs contributed $4.99. He says, great build and stream today, Carey. Thanks, Ben. And thanks for your continued support of the channel. I really appreciate that. Yep, there we are, 2,513. That's really good. Really, really good. Will I test the optical drive? Absolutely. Once I get the front and rear fans hooked up, I'll also get the optical drive hooked up, and that all gets tested. We also have the Samsung Magician software to install. We'll make sure we've got the latest firmware update on the drive and install the NVMe driver from Samsung versus the Microsoft NVMe driver, which it has by default. JV wants to know, when I upgraded to a Samsung solid state, he only got 420 megabytes a second. Well, you should see a maximum of around 550 if it's SATA, but it also depends on what motherboard and chipset you have. So if you have an older board, it may not be capable of that speed. I'd have to know the make and model of the board, and also to make sure you have the latest BIOS version installed, and that you have a proper SATA cable that can transmit those speeds. We're just about done here on this test. Four of 5. Just about done. 5 of 5. All right, then the word stop will go away when the test is already completed. There it goes. And then I'll go back to that flash drive and I'll grab that Samsung Magician software while I'm thinking about it. Close that. We're done with that. Firmware is the latest version. We're in the right interface mode. And NVMe driver is Microsoft. So let's change that NVMe driver to Samsung's. And then when this installs, it'll require a reboot for that to disable the one driver and replace it. It's like changing a tire on a car. You gotta stop the car, change the tires. So that's what we're doing right now. Yeah, also the Samsung Magician software may have a firmware update available for your Samsung drive that could improve its performance as well. JB says, I'm 5 years behind on BIOS updates, but I don't want to mess with it if there's no chance of improvement. How would you know if there's a chance of improvement if you don't update the BIOS? There's nothing to be afraid of. A BIOS update is, I've demonstrated it countless times, but if you're not comfortable with it, don't do it. But then don't complain about not getting the speeds. If you're not doing everything right, then don't expect to get the right results. Okay, now we'll run the Samsung Magician software, and it should say that we're running the Samsung NVMe driver. Yep. And again, we can run Crystal Disk Mark again just to see if there's any performance difference there. You may not notice it with this type of a performance test, but that doesn't mean you won't notice it in actual real-world usage. But let's just see out of curiosity what difference it makes, if any at all. David Anderson has contributed $1.99. What's the best way to erase a 970 EVO for a new install? Oh, simply just use the Windows Media, choose Custom Install, and when it shows you the 970 EVO, delete all the partitions, as it offers you that option there on the Windows 10 installation, until it just says there's no partitions and it shows that one 970 as being totally available. And then hit next, and Windows will then repartition and reformat it. And that's how I do it. And it'll wipe it completely clean. But you just have to delete the partitions that show up during the Windows 10 install, asking where do you want to install Windows 10. It'll show you that 970, and it'll show you all the partitions on that 970. Delete every one of them. Then continue with the install, having selected that drive, and it will recreate new partitions, format those partitions, and install Windows 10. You don't need any special tools or software. The Windows 10 installation media is all you need. All the parts list for today's build are listed in the video notes below the video. If the video you're looking at does not look like it's in focus, that's because you've set your resolution too low. You need to go to the little gear icon in the lower right of the video and select a higher resolution in order to remove what appears to be a bad focus. That's what resolution is all about. People want to go to HD because it's a crisper picture. If you're watching the video in a very low resolution, the picture is not as clear, and customers will often describe that as being out of focus, when in fact it's in focus to its greatest capability of that resolution that you have selected or has been selected for you. Can you leave the front fan off? Yes, Bill. With systems like yours where I'm not putting a graphics card in the computer, I typically do not hook up the front case fan, but I don't remove the front case fan either. I leave it there as sort of like a spare tire. So I will hook up the rear fan. I did say earlier on that I was going to hook up the front fan. I forgot. We're not putting a graphics card in here, so you don't need this fan. It's completely unnecessary for your build. If you're going to add a graphics card later, you could certainly hook that fan up. Or if you have a problem in the future with this rear fan, you could pull this fan off the front and replace it. They're the exact same fan. It'll cost you nothing. And I just typically will nylon zip tie this cable and run it down the back, so your cable management will be nice and clean, and the system will be whisper quiet. Let's see how we're doing on our test. Yeah, there's our completed numbers. They're pretty similar. If you've got an older Samsung drive and it's not performing well, the Samsung Magician can help you there as well. Oh, the test was still running. There we go. Now I can close it. When you bring up the Samsung Magician software, you want to make sure that your firmware version is the latest. You want to make sure trim status is enabled, and you can run the performance where is it? Performance optimization, which will force the trim command to run. And you need to allow that, just hit optimize. And that's running the trim command. It's not defragmenting, it's trimming. And the trim command can take a couple minutes to complete. Even though it says it's done, it may still be writing. So try that also on your older Samsung drives if you're not seeing the performance you're expecting, because that could hold you up. Also, make sure you have at least 25% of your drive space free. A solid state drive that starts to get full will impact its performance. Maybe not 25%, maybe at least 20%. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and shut this down. Thanks you guys so much for watching. I appreciate all of you stopping in today, hanging out with me. It's a heck of a way to kick off the week, and I'll have some work to do tonight with regards to, as I mentioned, cable management. I've got a product key to put in here to activate Windows. I can't show you that for obvious reasons. I'm not handing out product keys here. And thanks to everybody who's contributed during today's broadcast. So I'll give those folks one more shout out. David Anderson, Steve B., Ben DeCour, Past Me, Bill Carter, Lourdes Evans, Steve Devine, Paul from Mars, Madi Yoel, John Wilson, Andrew Dorset, Joey, JV, Tony Wallow, Adam Sleeth, Ian Craythorne, Tom Jackson, David DeVillers, Joey again, Tony Wallow again, Ace Kolpster, Nikolay Lukianov, Barnes Mums, Gio Johnson, Guillermo Agadon, Joey again, Colin Hunt, Donnie Seeger, John Peck, Bill Thomas, Colin Hunt, Alan Maybreyer, and the first person to kick us off with a contribution was Tony Wallow. So today's show has been brought to you by Bill Carter and Tony Wallow with their generous contributions, and Ben DeCour as well. So thank you guys for stepping up, and I really appreciate that. And I don't think I've got a live broadcast tomorrow, but I should have one on Wednesday, and I will have maybe a quick tips or two for tomorrow's content. I try and put something out every day. And then, of course, we've got the 2 more Optiplex computers to give away. We'll do that sometime this week, but I won't say when, because I only want it to go to members of the community. And we're going to take care of our own first, and once we're all taken care of, then we'll move on outside the community. The community is what makes all of this possible. This is not all me. There are no sponsors here. The viewers that you see contributing are the sponsors. The money YouTube pays is pathetically low and would not be enough to sustain the number of videos I've been making since the first of this year. It's only through those contributions that the giveaways are possible, and that the sheer amount of content I'm producing now has been made possible. So when you see somebody do that, please understand and appreciate how much their contribution is making this content available to you for free. So thank you guys so much once again. I really appreciate all my friends in blue keeping it civil there in the chat room. And those of you who are not yet blue but may soon one day be blue, thanks you guys. And I want to make sure that people who are not behaving to our community standards get the message that, you know, the way you are rewarded for your behavior is by me trusting you with that blue status. It's nothing that you're going to ask for. It's nothing. It is something that sort of comes with time. When I get to know you, I feel like I can trust you. And those people who come in here just seeking power, probably going to leave very disappointed in the results. But in the meantime, for the vast majority of you, we have an amazing community here, and I thank you so much for it. I'll see you all again very, very soon. Oh, I just see a contribution came in right under the wire. Donald Strickland's contributed $9.99. Thank you, Donald. Thank you for supporting the channel. All right, guys. I'll see you all again very, very soon. Until then, bye for now.